You're tuned in to The Dr. Kinney Show, and I'm your host, Dr. Erin Kinney, a naturopathic doctor and speaker dedicated to unraveling the mysteries of your body and guiding you back into balance. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Dr. Kinney Show. This week, I'm really pleased to have joining me a good friend of mine, Kara Chaffin Donofrio. We met through our kids, actually, and she is a real estate tycoon and runs her own podcast, and we connected via that, and I thought it'd be really fun to have her share her story and kind of chat about being a woman, being an entrepreneur, and kind of all the things that go along with that. So thank you so much for being here, Kara. It's so fun to have you on the show.
Well, I am really thrilled to be here. And yes, it was funny when we met. I think it was outside of one of our kids' classes or something, or we were talking, and it was just an instant connection. And then we started talking, and I was like, "Oh, you have a podcast? I have a podcast. Wow, how we've got all these similar, And so anyway, it's funny how that's how life happens and unfolds, and I love that. So thank you for. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So you have such a cool story. So maybe share your journey into how did you get to doing real estate? And we had this great conversation about spirituality and how that connects into being in business and just being in life. And I think, you guys know I like to talk about the connection between that and health. And I thought it was all kind of an interconnected thing that we could chat about.
Yeah, no, it's so good. So I'm, again, really thrilled to be here. So I have been in real estate actually since 2004. So I started really right out of college. And I've also, I guess kind of there's these two parts, so we can kind of dive into them. But the first part is I've always been this really spiritual person. And then I've also had this really, I majored in finance and global finance in college. So I've had this woo combined with this really strong desire to do business and maybe even doing it a different way. And that has obviously unfolded throughout the past 19 years in different ways. But I just say that to set the stage that I've got this these kind of two brains or two pieces, right? And I think it's been over the past few years where I've seen them be able to be where I've seen it differently. And I've seen how getting into a space where you can really allow things into being is a much better space to be for business than to push things into being. But again, just to start from the beginning, right? So I started in 2004, got into real estate working with a builder. Then, and I used a lot of actually, interestingly, visualization tools and things like that when I was in business there. So I would, I was there from 04 to 08. And even when things were kind of shifting in the market in a not so great market, I would imagine my model home as a lighthouse and a beacon and kind of allowing people to come to me. And it was interesting because they just did, even in kind of a weird market. It was kind of bizarre how that happens, but it showed up. It's just showed up. Right. So I've always kind of had that side. Well, so anyway, in 08, I call it my retirement in my early 20s or my late 20s, because a relationship actually brought me to Monterey, California. I was a little naive at the time because I had been super successful. And I just was very naive, thinking I was just going to be just as successful when I went there, not realizing, just naive. Of course, it's 08 and it's Monterey, which is a very beautiful town, but it's basically a retirement town where there's not a lot of industry, and the industry is tourism. And of course, in 08, nobody was really touring. That relationship was a great learning lesson. It was a terrible relationship, but I think it was also a great gift because I grew a lot in that time. Moved back in end of 08, 09. And then started doing, I was trying to actually figure out what I wanted to do, whether I wanted to real estate or I actually was really interested in social work. So I started a master's at University of Maryland and did social work while I was starting to build my own real estate practice on the resale side versus the new home side. And in doing that, and I actually worked in a school in DC with special needs children. And it was an amazing experience. But in doing that, I realized that actually part of real estate is counseling. And I already was inherently doing a lot of the things I was learning about. And so it actually just ended up being another skill set to add, right? Mm-hmm. And then so I built my real estate practice. I was doing really well and loved just working with clients. Our leadership team of the brokerage I'm still a part of said, Kara, we really feel like you'd be a great leader for us. We'd love you to lead offices instead of just working with clients. So I went on and led several of their offices and several hundred agents. And that was really amazing because I was able to learn, again, a lot and about people and how to lead. And it was interesting because and also I think it allowed me to really kind of tap into, in the way that I kind of work with my clients is like, what are your goals? How can I best help you? And it was kind of on that same side, but, helping agents with that, like, how do I develop people into making their dreams come true and helping guide them to what they want to create? So, but in the end, I didn't love building something for another company. I wanted to kind of build my own team. And I'm always just much more of an entrepreneurial, like, if I'm going to do what I want it to be for it under my own umbrella, right? So in 2019, I left, started building my own team again, and then we served the DMV area and then just expanded into Annapolis. So that's kind of like the long story of the career and how it unfolded. But it's interesting because kind of bringing it back to, I guess, soul business, so in 2000, I guess it was 19, right? When I was deciding what I wanted to do and if I wanted to leave the leadership role or go back and work with clients one-on-one and build my own team. There was like fear in that decision because I was also kind of thinking, well, I've got this like normal job, so to speak, and now I'm going to go out and create my own and again and kind of rebuild. But interestingly, I connected with a business coach around that same time, and I think the way that I operated in business before was much more of, even though I was using, I would say, I meditated and I journaled and I had a lot of like spiritual practices, I was much more in a hustle mode of doing business, a much more masculine energy in how I was doing the business. And so I knew that was not, I'm a mom of 3. I'm a wife, like right. Yeah. Like, well, my husband, I'm very lucky to have an amazing partner who helps me manage all the pieces. But, I knew that I couldn't do the hustle mode, like in the phase of my life that I am now, because I would just have nothing left to give to the family and to my kids. So I was like, how do I do this in a different way? So I connected with a business coach. Her name is Jen Cudmore, if anybody wants to look her up. She's amazing. And really, it was about kind of tuning into who am I in the world? Like now, I'm 42 now. Then I was just, it was 38, I think 39. And so it was about like, how do I tune into what are my true gifts? What do I naturally resonate at in terms of like, how does that come through in terms of my brand? And let me just move more into my core essence and do business from that way. And, of course, business strategy, like structure, though, the strategy around who I am in the world, and then allow to attract in the right people, the right soul aligned people, and do it in a different way. Right. And so that was a really monumental shift, I would say, in how I did the business. And it has just expanded and grown and been amazing. And it all comes together. Like one of my intentions is that everything comes together with grace and ease, and it just does.
Yeah.
Right? And so it is. So it's, so anyway, I think that's the piece that I love talking about, because I think if I can help people see their business from that perspective, then, everything shifts and life gets a little easier. Doesn't mean I don't work long hours. Like I'll work many times well into the night and there are hard weeks, but overall, it's a more peaceful, grounded way of doing business.
And I liked that you brought up the word intention, that your intention is for things to come together with grace and ease. And And I think, and I was on Kara Show a couple weeks ago, and we had this great conversation kind of talking about putting this stuff, how do you recover from burnout, particularly as an entrepreneur? And I think if you approach your health in a similar way, if you're struggling health-wise, if you're listening, or business, or any of these areas of your life, if you have an intention like that, things are gonna come so much easier. If you have an intention and then you have a daily practice, or you have something that's connecting you to source or higher energy or whatever it is. But I think that intention is really, really important. I've noticed in the last 4 or 5 years of business and life, like I journal every morning and I usually have a daily intention. My intention for today is this. And the days that I write something down, I look back and I'm like, well, that really happened for today. And if I don't, or if I'm not really clear on my intention, I'll look back and I'm like, well, I didn't really have clear intention. So I didn't get what I clearly intended to do. But I think if you set out with kind of what your intention is with the end in mind, again, with anything you're dealing with in life, whether it's setting up a business or real estate or your kids or your family or your health, the intention is, don't you think that's like a really big part of it?
I mean, I think intention is really everything. And it's funny you say that because, I journal every morning as well. And actually have like a place that I journal for intentions, right? So same kind of thing. It's about and I think that that's what's really beautiful about just the consciousness of our world even too. Like when I was kind of when I was 18 or in my teenage years and I was kind of learning about some of like law of attraction and this and that, it was more of a taboo subject to talk about to some degree. Right. Yeah. And so I think that what is really beautiful about now is that we can talk about these things and we can share them in a way, because I think overall the consciousness of our world has expanded and continues to expand. And so it really is now about, okay, what do I want to intentionally create? Like, what do I, and how do I want balance? Like, what are the things that, and being very clear on that, because I think that what happens sometimes is we don't have clarity. When you don't have clarity, then you're subject to everybody else's intentions.
Well, that's such a good point. And then you're going to get unsolicited feedback and you're like, wait, I don't know what to do. But when you know your truth and you know the path, it's pretty easy to move forward on that. But like you said, if you're not clear, and I hear this a lot from patients that come in and they're like, they don't really know what they want, or they don't know what their intention is for their healing process or what's going on. And they'll be like, I've seen 10 different doctors and I don't know who to believe and what to think. And, my first thing is, okay, let's stop and let's try to have you connect with you and you figure out what you want. And this could be, I'm sure you do this with your clients when they're looking for a house, like, hey, like be very clear about what you want. And when you're clear about what you want, I'm sure the house shows up for them, right? I'm sure you've had that happen many times.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and it's all about like asking really good questions and helping. I think that's like your role, my role. We're kind of advisors and partners in figuring out how do we guide you through like the expertise, I'm home, it's your health, right? Yeah. And so how do we guide you to the answers? Yeah. And people have the answers within. So the other thing is that sometimes I'll find is when I ask somebody, especially whether it's a client or when I'm, even talking to other colleagues or agents or business owners, because I love being able to help consult and help people think about their business differently. Sometimes when you ask, well, what do you want or what do you see? They don't know. Right. Mm-hmm. And so then sometimes it can feel a little, I've found for people like a little overwhelming because they're like, I don't know, like, how do I find the answer? And so part of it, I think, is if you are in a place where you're really not sure what the intention is or what you do want to create, it really just starts with asking the question, right? Yeah. And then allowing, like, what is it that I really want to feel? Or what is it that I really want to create? Or where do I, what does balance look like for me, right? That is a different answer for everybody. Yeah. And so asking the question, and then sometimes even it may come in that moment, or it just may show up in a conversation that you have later that day or later that week. But I think it starts in like the posing the question phase.
Because if you're not asking the way, it's like you're not even aware that you need to know the answer. And and to say that, and that I think this is important, why a daily practice is so helpful, because your needs and wants might change from day to day. I mean, you might want this today, and that might be about like how you're feeling. Like when you're talking about how do I want to feel,
that might change daily. Like one day you might want to feel calm and at ease, and the next day you might want to feel motivated and like go getter. But so I think the message here is to check in with yourself about how you want and to ask the question.
Yes, 1,000% right.
Yeah. Do you have a good resource for?
Well, it's funny. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you have a good resource for if someone is like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I want, like where they could go? Like, do you think a journal is a good place to start? Like if they're like, I don't even know what I want in life, or a good resource of those questions?
Yeah, well, I will say I do have a little journal that I created called if they go to free gift from Kara, Kara.com.
Awesome.
I actually have a little downloadable journal that goes into questions that you can ask. And it also lists out a lot of affirmations that I use that I love, like on different things like health, finance, all of those things. So that's like just a little, I forgot about that mentioning it, but I mean, that would be one way.
That's perfect.
And then I think, I personally, I'm a big believer in meditation, but I find that sometimes if people totally open to it are already doing it, and a lot of people are. But then I also find that when I say that, sometimes there's a little bit of like, like if people aren't in a practice.
Yeah.
Right. Like they're like, oh, I hate doing it.
I hate meditation. Don't make me meditate. Yeah.
Right. And so like my message on that, and because on my podcast, what I found is, we interview a lot of high level entrepreneurs, and all of them have some type of meditative practice, but they look different.
Yes.
So like one, Steve Sims, he's like an amazing entrepreneur. He was talking about his meditation is actually going on his motorcycle and just like driving and like totally getting lost. And he'll take a notepad with him, he said. And then he'll have thoughts and inspired and creativity that comes to him while he's out on the mountains, right? And he'll stop and pull over and he'll write those down. And so I think that it doesn't. And then another entrepreneur, Sharon Srivatsa, again, he's a real estate guy, tycoon, but he was talking about just like looking at the fire and like staring into the fire and kind of like so whatever it is, really all it is quieting the mind and whatever that looks like. I know Insight Timer is a great app that a lot of people use. I think you might use that one, right?
I love that app. It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I've used Sacred Acoustics also has a great app, and they have like different beta waves that are intended to guide you into different meditative states. But really, it doesn't have to be like you're sitting there cross-legged for like 30 minutes, right? Yeah. It can just be 5 minutes or 10 minutes of time. It can be, small increments with the idea of just like just trying to stop the mind to some degree from carrying you away from your true essence, or from hearing the intuitive guidance that really is always available to us if we're open to receiving the answers, right? Or the guidance. And that could look like a random thought that comes in of, oh, I should call this person, right? And then you just act on that, and you realize that like that, it seems like a thought, but when you're in an answer that you get a question, that's actually the answer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's cool how this all works. Is I feel like when you do get in tune or in the flow, like you'll be like, it's so beautiful to watch how, like, if you ask the question or you're trying to manifest something, or I really wish this would happen, and then if you do the practices and you get in alignment, that stuff just shows up, but not in the way that you would have expected. Like you said, you might get a thought to call someone, you might get a thought to like, I'm going to go drive over here, which is not a part of your normal day. And then you run into somebody, or that, there's always like such a cool way that it happens. And that to me, I'm always just like, oh, there has to be a higher power that's like guiding all of this, because how else could this work?
I mean, for sure. And I think that that's when, it's, and again, learning to kind of get into flow to act on those things, because it can be so powerful, and bringing it back to health too. I mean, I think it's all interconnected, right? Because if your health if you're not there from a physical, emotional perspective, you're not going to be it's going to be harder probably to hear right. Yeah. Exactly. So it's like, it's all interconnected, but when your health is on track and you're feeling in a feeling good place, then you can be more open to receiving all of the guidance and the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
And there is, speaking of intent, I was actually just talking to, she's a really gifted healer, and we were doing this exercise where she just focuses on stillness.
Yeah.
So if you, like if you say, okay, I'm not going to do the insight timer, I'm not, like, super easy to do, just like sit in a chair and close your eyes and just figure out, is there a place where stillness exists in my field, in my body, and just focus on that. And then you can then kind of try to separately, and this, I don't know, this is a little higher level, but I know that your listeners are open to it.
Yeah.
Right. So then the other piece to that is that then you ask, okay, where's intent? And intent can also be part of the universal magic of God's source, whatever that is. And it's actually can be like a, once you can sort of tap into that, that is the universal quantum field where like magic can happen. So like asking where stillness exists in you, where is intent and flow and, you know, abundance, and kind of see where these things are in relation to each other. And I kind of think of them as like holding points of the body. So you like hold the point of stillness, then you hold it to where these different pieces are around you in and around your field. And it's really interesting to kind of like bring in more of that source body connection.
So is that something you're being guided or facilitated through?
So in this case, yes, she was facilitating it through. But now that I've learned the skill, you can do it yourself.
Oh, wow. That sounds pretty cool. Who was that? What was her name? That's right.
Her name is Aria. I'll send it to you so you can put it in the show notes. It's Aria, and I'm blanking on her last name. But she's a beautiful healer. And
that's amazing.
Really powerful. So yeah, she does some really cool things. So I'll make sure to send you her. Yeah, that's good.
We'll put it in the notes. I think it's important for everyone who's listening to know that there's so many ways that you can access this, what we're talking about. And I think you have to find the way that works best for you. I loved you hearing the different stories of like the guy that rode his motorcycle, or, you know, like everyone has their own, or looking into the fire, or you kind of have to figure out what's the best way for me to get into that, like to clear my mind, to get into that kind of like flow so that you don't have that anxious ticker tape thing going in your head. It's like you want to put that worry part of your brain aside, and you want to allow the, like, you know, the higher source thing to flow through you. And sometimes it takes trying out a few. You might have to try a different meditation, or maybe maybe going for a walk, or maybe gardening, or maybe, you know, there's a whole bunch of different ways that you could get there. But I think, so if you're listening, you're like, oh, I really want that. You might just have to try out a few and see which one resonates with you. And you'll know, because you'll feel good when you do it, right? Like you'll be like, wow, this feels so good. I want to keep doing this. If it feels like a chore, that's not really, like, if you're just doing journaling or doing meditation to like check it off the list, that's not going to feel
the right.
You want to
not the right approach.
You want to enjoy it. I sometimes have found myself being like, okay, I'm going to write my journal, and the days that I'm not feeling it, I now have started to be like, if I don't feel like doing that, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go do the thing that feels good, because that's what you're aiming to get, is the feel good. You're trying to feel good.
Yes, for sure. And sorry about our pup that just barked.
Oh, no worries.
Here. No, I couldn't agree more. And actually, like, kind of adding on. So it's interesting that, you know, you brought that up. I think that also all of us are built so differently, right? So when I started working with Jen, I talked about and kind of like recreating my business and getting more aligned. One of the things that she has are these like brand assessments. And so I'm sure I could probably get the link for you if any of your listeners are interested. But so we did the brand assessment on me, right? And I am a romantic alchemist. Oh, so what that means, so the brand romantic is all about deepening intimate connections, right? Like I love connecting with people, which is probably why like podcasts and this, you know, and real estate in the connection piece is so aligned, right? And then the alchemist is I love to make dreams come true for people. So, and like, it's about transformation and helping people see things differently. So like so that information is really important, because one of my dear friends who's in real estate is not those things, right? So she's a ruler, and I forget the other thing. And so she's really focused on like empire building and like these huge teams and all that, right? So And to do what I do would probably not be in her best alignment. And I'm a really big believer that there's so much business, there's so much, in abundance, right? So the right people, one of the intentions that I hold, speaking of intentions, is that every day I connect with my soul aligned people, and that anybody that's not soul aligned is just lovingly taken out of my space. So not with any animosity, but that like those are the people that they just won't find me because they're not meant to be for me. They're meant to be for, my friend or someone else. Right?
Yeah.
So, and so I think the important thing too is that's why doing, like, whether it's business or getting into your health, you have to kind of look at, how you're designed, because how I'm designed allows me to do business in a way where, like, we started Coffee with Kara's because I love connection. I love, gifting people with coffee. And we have these little events that we do, pop-up events. And again, it's perfectly aligned for me and the brand and my business, right? Because
and perfectly aligned for those people that are meant for you, right?
Totally. Right. Yeah. And so again, I guess the piece I'm trying to get out there is that everything is not a one size fits all.
Yes.
And so it's really about having the, asking the questions and getting clarity on what it is that you do love doing, and then figuring out how that can be part of, how you receive and attract in clients and how you work in the world, because how you show up in the world, then everything is kind of more authentic.
Well, and that kind of ties into my message on almost every show, is making sure that whatever you're going through, health-wise in particular, is that you have the right provider for you. Like, you have the right person that you resonate, that your nervous system feels safe with. And I think this, like, if you're thinking about the story about your health, if you're in alignment with yourself and your intention, you're going to find the right providers for you, and you're going to have the right team, to take care of you. And that can be applied again to health, to business, to your kids, to, whatever aspect of your life. But I think it all comes back to that alignment and intention.
Yes, 1,000%. I love that.
Yeah. Super cool. All right. So people can go download your free journal, which sounds awesome. So if you're kind of looking for a little way to start your day, is it a quick journaling practice?
It's just a quick little journal. And it starts with asking kind of, what do you want to create, and asking those questions. And then like I said, it does give some places to dream, right, of what you want in like the 5 and 10 year plan too. And the thing is, like, those can all shift, but I think it's like your 5-year plan may look differently a year from now than what it does today. But I think it's important to just, again, have clarity around what would feel amazing, right? Like, what would just feel super uplifting. And I think the other thing is, you don't want to pick a goal that feels demotivating either, because that's like, so it's about getting into that good feeling place that's going to inspire you. And have clarity around where you're going. Doesn't mean, again, things can't shift, but I think that's really important to find for yourself, is to like, what feels amazing? What would feel just so rich and good? And then ask for it. And then I always like to put in or better, right?
Yes.
So like, I'll ask and say, God, please bring me the right soul aligned people, or better.
Or
right?
better. Yeah. I love this.
God,
or something else. Or something that's better for me. Yeah. Because you might not, this is what I think I love about when you get into this like spiritual flow and stuff starts happening. You're like, oh, this is so cool. Stuff might happen that you never would have even dreamed was possible, but you're like, whoa, this is way better than I ever would have asked for. So that's a perfect thing to add in the end. Like, I would like this or something better.
Or better.
Yeah.
Because listen, like, we are still human. Like, our creator knows way more than us, like, trust in the infinite intelligence of something that's way beyond you. We are just, we are expansive, powerful beings, but we are not.
Yeah. Sometimes we can't see it happen. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like being open to, okay, like, this is what I want.
Yeah.
But if there's a better path, like, show me the way, or show me, I'd love this or better. So yeah.
This has been a super fun chat. We will put all the links to all the things we've talked about in the show notes. So go check everything out, and we'll put your show in there as well if you guys want to go listen to. She's got a cool show. So super fun. Yes. Everyone, we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thanks so much for the invite. I appreciate it.
Of course, it's so fun.
Thank you for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to connect with me on social media and leave a rating and/or a review. This helps grow the show so more people have access to this knowledge that leads to empowered healing. Love and light, and see you next week.